It's your boy Forever Cabron coming in to let you know to check out What's Hood with me, the Compa FC, where you can roll one up with a real one. We chop it up about everything, dog. Politics, hood shit, music, movies, acción, you name it, la causa, el movimiento. We want to tackle things about looking at your culture differently and all that good shit. So if you want to look into that, if you want to find some self-love and self-worth, dog, check out a Compa. Roll one up with a homie, dog. Every Tuesday and Thursday, right here on Binge on this. Check a homie out, dog. Stay up late.
All right, welcome David Gutel to Sam of All Trades podcast. Dude, it's great to have you on, man. I'm excited. So to start off, tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do, and what do you like to tell people you do?
I like to tell people that I'm a master liar because that is my job physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Because as in filmmaking, so I work in the film industry. I did things before that though. I did a little bit of teaching. I worked for a tech company. That was weird times. What else did I do? I worked for like a concert agency or like a concert production place where they like built the lights and the stages and stuff like that. The tech job was probably the weirdest thing I did outside of filmmaking. It was like a college seasonal job that we would go to hotels and set up wireless mobile auctions over people's cell phones.
Huh.
So it was like there would be like, I dealt with tons of A-list people, A-listers, like 1%ers. And honestly, I think the job actually helped me deal with people who have so much wealth, they don't know what to do with it. Because like I was in constant contact because I was like a tech support person.
Yeah.
Like I had to deal with like Adam Sandler. There was a thing with like Leonardo DiCaprio I was working at. There was like one time a room of like 50 people and they raised it was like something like $6 million. It was insane.
What the fuck?
It was insane. It was insane. I was like the most amount of money I've ever seen doing that job. It was like, and it was at the Sunset Tower Hotel.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyways, so that was a job I did. But my passion is directing. My passion is storytelling. And that's why I would say I'm a liar, because like that's what we do. We lie to the audience through visuals, through sound, through the story, leading them one way with a twist, all that stuff. I like to tell stories. I like to exaggerate. I like to communicate to people through the medium of filmmaking. It's a medium that like is, I feel, unsurpassed in communicating human emotion.
You still think that we haven't hit that peak of communicating that human emotion? Well,
actually, so I don't know if you've read any about Elon Musk's neurolinking stuff going on right now.
Yeah. I'm way into that.
That will be peak, because then you'll be able to immediately communicate an emotion physically without speaking, which is mind-boggling, which is like,
that's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, the stuff I was reading, my friend Michael was like sending me all these articles, and he knows I don't read these long articles he sends me, so he just sends me the important stuff, which is great. I like, yeah.
I wish I had a filter like that.
Yeah, he's great. But like, it was just insane, like thinking about the things, like those things. But anyways, in terms of filmmaking, I feel like it's one of the most effective, like, visual mediums to communicate emotion. And it kind of triggers all the senses except smell and taste.
Didn't they try to do that? They tried to have a theater that would have some sort of like a smell.
Yeah, they tried
spritz water at you.
Yeah, they tried that. There's actually theaters still that have like called 4D. I have a friend, Zach, who works. He's a film buyer for indie films, and he was telling me about how there's a chain of theaters that they'll take like the leftover footage of movies, like B-roll, that they don't use in the movie, and they'll project it on the walls of the theater so that it's a more immersive experience. So you're like, your peripherals are surrounded in visual similarity to what's on the screen.
Huh. So,
Yeah.
so as you're sitting there, that's interesting. So as you're sitting there, let's say they're in a forest, there's forest all on each side of you.
Yeah. It's like just trees projected on the sides, you know?
Interesting.
He said like for the Aquaman movie, it was like underwater stuff, you know?
Right. I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. That was his example, which I thought was interesting. So, you know, let's see here. I'm 28 years old. You
went to school for this?
I went to school for this. I went to Huntington Beach High School. I'm a Southern California local. I studied like film stuff in high school. They had a wonderful program there that's called the Academy of the Performing Arts, and they had a film track there. And then I went to Cal State Long Beach to get my bachelor's in filmmaking with an emphasis in directing. And
so this is something that you've wanted to do forever.
Honestly, like maybe like about once a week, there's like a crippling fear that comes over me when I realize I don't know how to do anything else.
I don't know how to stop lying to people.
I don't know how to do anything else with my life. And if I don't make it, or if like things don't pan out right, what the heck am I going to do? Cause like, I sometimes feel like I don't know how to do anything else. Like I work on my car. That's my hobby. I fix things around the house. I'm like mechanically minded, but like maybe a mechanic. I don't know, but it scares me every so often where I'm just like, oh, I can't do anything. I picked
something really hard.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I've known that I've wanted to do this since I was in 8th grade. Something just clicked. And what's funny is I actually hated going to the movies as a child, which is really funny.
Really?
Yeah. I hated sitting in movie theaters as a kid. And my parents make fun of me now, and they remind me of that. When I'm the one who tells them, have you seen this movie? Have you seen that movie? And blah, blah, blah. But there's actually this question I've been asked before is like, when did you know, like, this is what you wanted to do for the rest of your life? And actually I was a freshman in high school, and I was sick for 3 months, and I was undiagnosed, but I had mono. But they tested me for mono. They tested me for mono, but they didn't find mono. And I was bedridden for like 3 months, and I missed 3 months of school. It was very like, I was like isolated because of how contagious it is. I was like in my room. I made a couple of videos of myself in there, but there was like one day in particular that like I remember as clear as day. My dad came home from the video rental store, early 2000s, and he was like, David, I have a movie here that I think you'll really like, and I think you should watch it. And I said, okay. Like I literally had no excuse. And so I put it on, and it was Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Nice.
And that from that point, watching that movie, that was the first time that I felt better.
Okay.
Like from when I was like, I literally I had fevers. I would sleep for like 18 hours. My kidneys hurt because your kidneys were swollen. Like it was terrible. And like that film, I'd never seen it before when he brought it, and it elevated me outside of my physical ailments. And I didn't really realize like the power that movie had over me in that moment until like later I realized, like after the movie was over, I was like, wow, like I feel better. Like
it
laughter.
It took you out of your body. It gave you that extra world, an escape. Yeah,
exactly. And it was in that moment I realized like I want to try and do that for other people.
Okay.
You know, that's kind of like, I guess you would say my mission statement is like, I want to try and do that for other people, in similar situations. That's why I really like comedy a lot. The things that I've directed have mostly been comedies. I've done some serious things, and those things are all Westerns, but
that's how we met.
And that's how we met. And so like that, to me, like that's what draws me to filmmaking, is like being able to immerse people in a story and hopefully engage them and challenge their thinking, challenge their ideologies, maybe even solidify their ideologies. You know, sometimes you make a movie and the person's like, you know what, like that's the exact same way I think. You know, like it's like validating someone's existence in a way to a certain degree.
That's the first time I've heard that. You always hear about people trying to challenge the system as opposed to solidifying. You know, maybe this time it needs solidifying. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, because the thing is like, you know, there's like obviously films and stuff like they push the boundaries of like societal norms and they put things in front of mass audiences to challenge their perspectives. Like, you know, when you had like the first people kissing on screen, when you had the first pair of actors sleeping in the same bed, like, you know, those things were like, they were huge. And like films have done that since the beginning of time, is putting visual things in front of, you know, their audiences that challenge their perspective of the world around them. And that's very important. And I think, you know, for maybe like for people who don't travel and people who don't really get out of their comfort zone, sometimes movies is the only thing that takes them out of their comfort zone.
Well, growing up in, I grew up in parts of the world where people just never left their villages. Some of all the kung fu movies I watched as a kid were on beta tapes, you know, from my friends' houses. But they never left maybe 10-mile, 20-mile radius of their village, and they knew about the world through film. That's how they knew about all the different parts of the world. A question. I'm busy. Bless you. Bless you. Goes on the cutting room floor right there.
Love it. That's how you'll end it.
Yeah, I'll just add that at the end and the beginning. I cut you off a little earlier. You were telling me, and basically this kind of goes for acting and anybody in movie making in general. 90% of the time, we're unemployed.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean,
that's what a lot of people think. Is like, oh, you make movies, oh, you're an actor. They think it's like a 9 to 5 sometimes, but most of the time,
sometimes,
if you get
most
TV.
of the time, the best. That's a great question because so this takes me back to my college. Cal State Long Beach. So there's a lot of different schools of thought when it comes to film teaching when entering the workforce. And I discovered this when a friend of mine who's a producer, she went to USC, and we talked about our education. She went to USC Film School. I went to Cal State Long Beach. One is 6 times the price than the other. And we talked about our film education. And what I thought was very interesting is actually how USC and Cal State Long Beach prepared their graduates for the real world of the film industry. And like, this is based off my conversation with one person from USC.
Right.
But like what they said is that USC pushes that their graduates become assistants to the job they want. So like, if you want to be a writer, become a writer's assistant. If you want to become like a producer, become an assistant to the producer, or be a director, become an assistant to the director. Mm-hmm. You know, work as a receptionist, or work as like what are they called? An assistant to like the VP or something of a production company, and like become an assistant to someone who's higher than you, which I think is a very valid course of action, because you're going in an entry level position and you're gonna learn their system. And
it's pretty much how it's been done though for a while, right?
Yes. And so like that's what makes sense for like the USC school of thought. It's very like, that's a surefire way. Cal State Long Beach, they were like, all right, you're about to enter the abyss. Good luck. Like, so like, you're gonna
sink or swim.
You know, they called it the cliff edge. They said you're about to jump off the cliff here when you graduate. And, you know, most of like, you know, I taught high schoolers filmmaking at Huntington Beach High School, actually, after I graduated from there and when I was in college and afterwards. And a lot of the seniors ask, like, I want to go to film school. Where should I go? And I tell them, you're going to learn the same thing wherever you go. It's a matter of the teachers, the equipment, and the facilities, and the name. And I'm very happy with my education at Cal State Long Beach. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I say to them, I said, what matters is your fellow colleagues you make in college, because those will be your platform to jump off and enter the workforce. Because all of my friends I made in college, we all worked together when we first got out of college, and we all like helped each other.
Mm-hmm.
We all it was like, as a little community, as a little tribe, we entered the film industry.
Yeah.
And like, when one person kind of finds a crack in the system, we kind of all weasel our way in through there.
Yeah,
exactly. And you return the favor. Like, you know, someone recommends you for a job. If you can't do your next job, you recommend that person. And it honestly, like, the other thing I say is, like, if you want to work in the film industry, the first thing you have to let go is that it's going to happen immediately. Because one of my mentors, who like sadly passed away last year, his name was Stuart Rosen, and he when I was going to graduate, like my senior year, I spent my whole college career with him. He's an incredible person. He has an incredible legacy as well. He said, David, is like, your film career isn't going to start until 4 to 5 years after you graduate from college.
At least.
And imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Like, 4 to 5 years after you graduate college is terrifying. And I wouldn't say it was until my fourth year of since graduating college that I was able to like quit like all other things and only do film full time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, I also have a very lucky situation, and I acknowledge this, is that I was able to live with my parents until I could afford to move out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is very difficult. And like, I have a great amount of respect for all the filmmakers out here who don't have family out here, and they're making it on their own by their own volition, if that's the right word. And
better than violation.
Yeah, thank you. So like, I had a rare scenario where my parents were like, yeah, like, you stay as long as you need to, but like, as you make it. And last year I moved out of my parents' house, and I live in Sherman Oaks now with some of my friends. And it's been great. Granted, the whole COVID-19 thing is changed all that, but you know, we're getting by. But anyways, back to your question, most of my job is like not working. And when I am working, it's like 24/7.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that brings me to another thing, which is a lot of people think directors just stand behind the camera with a bullhorn and a beret and yell at people. But a director,
that's what we do.
Right. But a director also has to kind of have his finger in all the moving parts of making a movie. My personal philosophy with directing, and I'm still working on it, is
the director's importance is to be able to communicate his or her vision to the best of their abilities. Mm-hmm. And the only way to get better at communicating is by understanding other people's jobs. And so in college, and even outside of college, I tried to do jobs that weren't necessarily directing. Like, I was an electrician on like a feature film for a couple of days. You know, I've been a grip. I did sound before. I've dabbled in cinematography. I've been an AC like once or twice, and most of this is in college and some jobs afterwards. I started in art department, actually.
Okay.
In college, I had two mentors that actually brought me onto film sets and taught me my set etiquette, my set etiquette. And I started in art department. And so, and I truly feel that like those experiences have made me a stronger director, because I'm able to communicate effectively to those respective departments on what I'm looking for. I can't tell you how many times, like when I was on art department, that a director would say something and we would execute that, and then they would say, that's not what I was looking for. And it's sometimes that's the fault of art department, because maybe they didn't ask enough questions. But I would say generally that always falls on the director. And I'm kind of maybe a little bit too strict about this, but I feel if there's any problems during production that are creative based, it's the director's fault. because
Okay.
that person had not communicated enough to iron out those details. Because if you think about it, when you make a movie, it's all about details. It's all about what the actors are wearing. It's about where they are. It's about what they're saying. It's about how they look. It's where they're standing. It's like the props they have. It's
literally
what color
the
they
details.
are. Literally every single detail needs to be discussed, you know? And sometimes like not it's not like, okay, like what are the background characters wearing? Like sometimes you just have to say like, this is the color palette of the movie I'm going for. And you discuss that with the costume designer and the production designer and the cinematographer to make sure that everything is blending together. But like, you know, when a director doesn't communicate those things, or maybe hasn't thought of those things, it leads to problems on set where suddenly you find yourself where things have misaligned. Like maybe, like I've seen it before. It's like the director shows up and they're like, this doesn't work. Like this doesn't fit, you know, or like, and it's a lack of communication. And like, that's like the number one killer or success, like, or succeeding factors of filmmaking is communication. You know, my passion is directing, but like my main job in the film industry right now is being a first assistant director. And so the first assistant director, my job is to assist the director in making sure that a lot of those details are getting hammered out. You know, logistically, talking to the different departments, you know, really discussing it. And my job is to execute the script and the story on a logistical basis. The director's job is to execute it on a creative basis. And we have to work together to achieve that, right? Like, you know, it's like, there's a scene, for example, I have to ask the director, how long do you think you need to shoot this scene? And they're like, oh, that's a big scene. I'm going to need like 8 hours, you know, or something like that. And I have to take note of that. And then, so I have to figure out, how are we going to shoot this scene? How do I give that amount of time to the director for the scene based on the other scenes that we have to shoot, you know?
Yeah.
And like I've really enjoyed being a first assistant director. Like that's like been like I said, my main bread and butter for the last 3 years, doing you know, all from feature films to commercials to shorts to music videos to branded content.
Yeah, you got quite the IMDb going on.
Well, actually, what's funny about that is that, okay, I feel I've tried to change it. Like I've contacted IMDb because when I first got out of college, I worked for a company that directed actors on their acting reels. It was a company that made acting reels. Okay. And the catch-22 of an actor is you have to have an acting reel, but to have an acting reel, you have to be casted in something, and you have to have that footage.
Yeah. Unless you just do a small, quick scene.
Exactly. And so this company that I worked for, they made actor reels, and I was lucky enough that I was hired to direct for them, where I'd maybe go in like two or three times a week, and I would do like 6 to 9 scenes a week with different actors. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those directing credits are those little scenes because they would do an IMDb credit so that the actor could then put that on their resume and have some sort of credit on IMDb. Like their name would exist on IMDb.
But why would you? I know I got my name on IMDb by just doing some background work. But why would you want to take that off? Or is it just like it's like a faux pas amongst other directors? You're kind of one of those things. Like I don't post my tattoos. It's just like if someone gets a little name, I'm not going to post that tattoo because I don't want my tattoo artist friends looking at that and going like, "What the fuck, man? Why would you post that?"
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's something ridiculous, like 43 director credits or something.
It was a lot.
It's something like 43 directing credits, and I don't know. Just I was raised religious, and there's a consciousness in my mind that's like, it's not exactly true, but it is. I mean, I did direct it. I had to work with some really great actors. I had to work with some really terrible actors, and you know, with these little micro scenes, and I learned a lot. Like,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, you work the scene, you know.
yeah, and so it was. I don't know. I haven't been asked, why do you want to take it down? I've never told that I want to take it down. I've contacted IMDb. I just thought like, this is like maybe a little bit too much. This is like, this looks a little ridiculous for my age and where I'm at. And like, it looks fake to a certain degree.
Yeah,
and like,
almost like you were filming like your cousin's thing and you put that up on IMDb.
Yeah. And so I've tried, and like, they said no. And so I was like, well, I guess I got to live with it or change my name. But yeah, so but then there's things I have directed, like you know, I've done a couple of series, like a comedy series. One of them actually is on a Amazon thing called Comedy Dynamics. I've done a thing with Creed Bratton. It was a show called Hello Realtor. That was a lot of fun.
You worked with a lot of the YouTube guys. What was it, Smosh and them?
Smosh, yeah. I have not directed with them.
Oh, okay.
I have not directed with them. I was the first assistant director for a lot of their stuff.
Okay.
There was moments where I had to step in and direct. Just moments. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. Their in-house director, Ryan Todd, he's done all their stuff for like a decade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're a very solid group of people. They're very funny. They're a lot of fun to work with. And things like, obviously any production is stressful, and like, if you have a heart condition, I would refrain from working in the film industry, because it's a very stressful situation. And like we were saying earlier, is like, when you're working, you're literally working 12 hours a day for however many days the project is.
Yeah.
In this last December, my last feature I just did was by far the most physically demanding, hardest thing I've ever done.
Was that the one on a boat?
It was on a boat. It was 3 weeks, 3 6-day weeks. So I was working 72 hours a week.
Whoa.
Right? 12, 24, I can do math, 36, 48.
You don't need to do math to be a director.
Yeah, no. Yeah, 70, it was like 72 hours a week. And that's just on set. That's like not talking about like the meetings before set and the meetings after set, you know, like discussing the next day. So I was pushing, I want to say 14 to 15 hours for 3 weeks, 6 days a week. Every single day was overnights. We did 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. on a boat in the San Pedro Harbor. It was insane. The movie's called Imminence. I was the first assistant director. Terry was the director. Him and I had a great time. I literally knew no one on the set. I got asked out of the blue. I got recommended. I thought it was insane. And I said, I will do the movie if you meet my demands, which was X, Y, and Z. And they did.
They gave you those letters. They're like, here you go.
Yeah, they literally they met the demands, and I was like, oh crap, now I got to do the movie. Like, okay, so we did it. It was a lot of fun, and like I would not change that. But like, just like kind of, and I know I have a lot of friends in college that decided to not work in the film industry purely because of the hours that it demands on you. It's very physically demanding. You're on your feet for 12 hours a day. You're sometimes in crazy conditions. Like I did, I was the first AD for a series called Dirt, which is a kids series on YouTube. I would describe it best as Degrassi meets motocross.
Okay.
Yeah, Degrassi meets motocross. And I remember we were out in Palmdale shooting at a dirt bike track, and it was the hottest day in like, I want to say like 8 years or something like that. And it was like 115 degrees, and we were shooting in 115 degree weather, and it was insane. And like I've never seen a crew move more slow, which is good. Like we all had to take our time and pace ourselves.
Right.
Safety. And like as the first AD, my number one job is safety. And so like that's a huge part of my job. That's like the reason my job exists. But like sometimes you're shooting in these insane conditions that are like just unbearable, and you have to somehow be creative in those environments, and it's very difficult sometimes. You know, like the last thing you're thinking about is like the 180-degree axis line when you can't stop sweating from every part of your body, you know.
So what is one thing that you would tell a beginning filmmaker to, like, what pitfalls should they watch out for? What have you learned? I mean, just like that. For example, when I started the whole standing on your feet for 12 hours thing, I got flat feet. My back hurts 20 minutes into standing in one spot. So I got to keep moving. I didn't even know that till I got on the set, and I was like, oh man, I got to get some orthopedics. But what's like one thing, or more than one thing, that you would like to let people know, or even maybe even if you could go back in time and let yourself know?
That's a good question. So I get asked that a lot from my seniors in high school, like with little tips here and there. The number one thing I would tell, if you want to be a director, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a cinematographer, if you want to be a production designer, if you want to be a creative type, don't stop creating. Because
you don't need school for it, is what you're saying. You could just
No. You do not. Like, I have not been asked once for my film degree. Are you kidding me? Like, the only reason why you go to film school is to build a network to enter the workforce with.
Right.
Like that's honestly the most beneficial part about a film degree is one, you have a safety net in case you mess up and your name's not on the line. That's a big thing because it's a learning safe environment. Two, you are making connections and you are getting colleagues that you will enter the workforce with that will get you your next job. And like, I can't tell you, you do not know where your next job is going to come from. My best example of that is in college, I was the production designer for this like pilot of a game show. And those people called me 4 years later out of the blue. They called me 4 years later out of the blue. And they asked me if I wanted to production design on their feature film they just got funding for. Wow. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't do production design anymore. I'm a first AD or director. Like, well, we already have our director, but we want you to first AD it. And I was like, I'll be honest, I've never first AD'd a feature before. This will be my first time. And they're like, we don't care. We trust you. We know, like, if you give it the attention to detail that you did on that game show thing we did 4 years ago, we know like you're perfect for the job. And that's honestly what helped me actually like become a first AD, because that was my first feature film. And that's actually kind of like it's kind of a big thing because it allows you to say you did that. And it gave me a ton of experience that I would never have otherwise. So like literally you never know where your next job is going to come from. And so one of the tips I would say is be nice to everyone. Even if you even if you don't like the person, you don't like their sensibilities, you don't like their their mannerisms or whatever, being nice and polite to people goes a long ways. And it usually goes in ways that you can never actually like quantify later down the road, because the impressions you make on people last forever. And if you're polite and nice to people all around you, and this just doesn't apply to filmmaking, it applies to life in general, but particularly in life, particularly in filmmaking, is those people will want to hire you again. When you're nice and polite, those people will want to hire you again. And that's a huge deal because we're freelance. We don't know when our next job is. You know, my next job right now is maybe in June or July because of the whole coronavirus thing.
Right. But I mean, being on set, you have to be with someone. You have to deal with that person for, like you said, hours and hours and hours and hours. You don't want to be with an asshole. I mean, you would rather have someone that, I mean, even if the guy is better than you and if he's an asshole, they'll still go with you. If you're
I've seen it happen 100 times where it's like they're like, oh, don't hire, like literally like, oh, like, because as a first AD, I'm one of the key members of the production.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I've been in rooms where literally like, don't hire that person. They're an asshole. Like, hire this person. And like, literally, well, this person's better than that person. Yeah, but I don't want to deal with that person for 12 hours
difficult.
a day.
Yeah.
Yep. It's very sad. And it's, there's very few people that can get away with it when their talent exceeds their attitude. It does happen.
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. I haven't worked with him, but I've heard of the stories. And then sometimes you sometimes get that asshole on set, and you have to learn how to work within their spectrum.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you figure it out, like, and also like, this is actually a point as a director. You need to learn how to communicate with all different kinds of people and getting on their wavelength. And I think it's very important sometimes that when you meet with someone, when you're engaging with your key members, that you understand their mannerisms, and you understand like when they want to say something, but they feel like maybe it's saying too much, you need to encourage them to say it. Because the one thing that I always feel is like, I would rather have someone say something that's a completely dumb idea than not say it at all, so that we know that that's not the direction we want to go.
Exactly. No, there's no bad ideas. I mean, there might be some.
There might be some. But so one of the attitude is a key point in like always doing good, always being well behaved, always just being a good person towards other people, because that will get you hired again. So that's attitude. The other one I would always say is sorry, give me a second.
No.
What do I say?
No.
I say,
what would you tell yourself?
Why am I drawing a blank? I had it all in my head. What was the first thing I said? I said,
don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. But then before that, I said,
so relationships. This is how good I'm listening.
Yeah. No. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. Again, I'm going to be clipping a lot of this.
Let me think.
Yeah, because I mean, if you go for it.
So yeah, so there's your attitude. There's your fellow colleagues you make in school. That those become your friends, and those help you join the workforce. Don't stop creating. That was the other one. And what I mean by don't stop creating is like, one of the hardest things about filmmaking is actually getting better at filmmaking. Mm-hmm. Getting better at filmmaking requires you to fail every single time you make something. And
that's a lot of things.
Yeah, it's one of the most discouraging things about filmmaking is like when you make something, it's in your head and it all makes sense. But then like maybe when you shoot it, or like there's a certain detail you forgot, or there's a step of the process you didn't do, and it really shows on your end product. And you're like, damn, like I really hate what I created, or I really don't like what I created. The thing is not to get discouraged by that, but to actually get encouraged by that, because you now know what not to do. Mm-hmm. And that is actually like, that's a huge one as well for like young filmmakers, is like, you're going to make stuff that's garbage, and that's okay. Like, you're supposed to make garbage. Steven Spielberg did not come out of the gate making Jaws or Duel or all this stuff. There are failures along his way that he learned mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it since a little kid with that little, film camera.
Exactly. And so he has learned that process from a young age. And that's why I say don't stop creating, because you need to keep creating, to keep learning from your mistakes, to keep polishing your product. And that works as a cinematographer, a production designer, a director, a writer. Like if you're writing,
just time.
It's time. It's like, what is it? It's 10,000 hours to be a master. So, like that's a huge, and I know a lot of people like get discouraged and stuff by their like, they'll get discouraged and they're like, oh, I can't do this because what I made sucked. I spent money. I spent so much time. I called in so many favors, and I like what I made sucks and I'm not proud of it. But like that's part of the process, and it's one of the most terrible parts of the process is learning from your mistakes, because you have to realize this is how you get better as a filmmaker. And like if I look back at my college films and my films now, I see strengths and weaknesses in both, you know, and I see those pitfalls. I see those pitfalls that I avoided now that those mistakes I made back then.
Yeah. I mean, and especially with technology the way it is nowadays, it's not like back in the day where you have to have a film editing room in your house. Now everyone can, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse that everyone can make films now.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot more forgiving to make mistakes. The only thing that you're wasting a lot of now is time, and that's really about it. Maybe some resources like money, like because things cost money, and sometimes you spend money on it. Like I would tell young filmmakers, like if they're in film school, like don't spend a lot of money on your senior film. Try and spend the school's money on your senior film.
Yeah, you can get grants too.
Yeah, you can get grants. Cal State Long Beach was really cool because there was the class of directors, and there was like 24 directors in my class, and 10 of those directors got chosen to make a film with like a $3,000 grant.
Nice.
And luckily I was one of those directors. And so like you have a little money, and actually what was really awesome is I actually got to shoot my film on 35 millimeter film.
Yeah. I think you told me that because we were trying to do that.
Yeah. I shot my film on 35 millimeter film. It was a super amazing process, and you learn a lot that way because you can't waste film. So you have to make sure that what you're getting is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
So like I said, recap for young filmmakers or my past self is keep creating. Your attitude is most important. Your friends and colleagues that you make now will be your fellow coworkers in the future.
So basically relationships is the way to go.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Like you said, like when you said earlier, like, I don't want to be with that asshole for 12 hours a day. Like people, like, yes, there is a lot of nepotism in the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like, it's not just because like, there isn't nepotism just because. There's nepotism because you don't want to be working with people you don't like or don't know for 12 plus hours a day for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like nepotism is like, I couldn't get through some of the projects that I did without my best friends being a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a solid group of people that when like, let's say I'm up a creek without a paddle, I can call them and like, we will get through it together. And sometimes like when you make friends on set, when you go through some of the worst sets ever, and like you go through some serious trenches, like you guys come out as comrades for life. Like,
yeah, like army buddies.
Yeah. You share a look with each other, and like, you just know that no matter what happens, you got each other's backs.
You've gone through some shit.
Seriously, it's kind of weird. It's kind of magical, actually. Like that's actually, so like I've been asked before, like, what's my favorite part about filmmaking? And my favorite part about filmmaking is the collaboration process with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love working with people. I love working with different kinds of people. And that's probably one of the most fun processes for me, is getting to, as a director, getting to pull someone's creative abilities out of them for my project,
mm-hmm.
for our project. And that's what I would say, like, also to young filmmakers is like, if you want to be a director, you have to remember that your movie will not exist without your crew members.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely a collaboration piece.
Yes, the director is at the helm. Yes, the director is like guiding the way, but without people running the sails or tying the rope or, like spotting dangers ahead.
Yeah, that ship's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. It's going to crash and burn. And so like, there's a huge, like, you have to have a huge respect for everyone on set. Everyone. And that's like one of the coolest parts about filmmaking is like, everyone is applying themselves to one common goal. And it's kind of powerful when you have like 50 to 60 people all working towards one common goal. And that's how you get, you know, amazing movies. It's because everyone's like,
it's almost like wishing it into existence. You guys all created something into reality.
Exactly.
Well, David, I want to keep talking with you, but we're running out of time right now, so we're gonna have to cut this a little short. But I'd love to have you on again. I have so many more questions. I have a list of questions here I haven't been able to get on, but that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, sorry I talked too much.
No, dude, I loved it. So before we go, is there anywhere that people can find you on social media, or any? You have a website with reels?
I do have a website. It's davidmgutel.com, and then there's also my Instagram, which is davidmgutel.
Okay, we'll have that in the description too.
Cool. Well, that's fun. That's embarrassing. I better make sure it looks good. Great.
Cool, man. Well, again, I really appreciate having you on. Too bad our project kind of fell through this quarantine. Hopefully we can get back on that.
You and a million other people. Us and a million other people. But hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's nice to talk about the things I used to do.
Well, man, you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, hope to have you on soon.
All right. Yeah. Talk to you soon, Sam.
Later, man.